Ladies and gentlemen, have you ever carried so much inside that the world never sees? The strength behind your smile, the battles behind your silence, the fire behind your doubts? This is exactly how we feel when life tries to break us but underestimates the power we hold within. What you're about to hear is not just words, it's a mirror of your own strength, your own struggle, and your own unstoppable spirit. Stay with me, because this will awaken something inside you that you've always known was there. This is exactly how we feel when we walk through life with dreams that seem invisible to everyone else, but burn like fire inside our souls. We feel the pressure of a world that doesn't always value patience, yet we are called to endure, to persist, to keep watering the seeds of vision when nothing seems to be sprouting. It is the silent ache of waiting, the quiet courage of trusting that though the ground looks bare, something powerful is growing beneath the surface. We know that one day, what we have sown in faith will break through the soil, and the same people who doubted us will stand in awe of what has emerged. This is exactly how we feel when our voices shake as we speak truth into rooms filled with judgment, when we fight for spaces that were never designed for us, when we claim territory that generations before us were told was impossible. It is the trembling strength of daring to be different, daring to go further, daring to believe that limits are only illusions. The world might look at us with suspicion, with doubt, with fear, but deep inside, we know that every single act of courage leaves behind a trail for others to follow. This is exactly how we feel when we push through exhaustion, when our bodies crave rest, but our spirits demand progress, when the nights stretch long and the mornings arrive too soon, yet we refuse to quit because we know that the scars may never fully disappear, but they remind us of the battles we have survived. They remind us that pain did not destroy us. It shaped us. That brokenness did not end us. It refined us. And with every scar we carry, we also carry a testimony of resilience, proof that nothing we've endured has been wasted. This is exactly how we feel when we look at the road ahead and it feels too long, too steep, too impossible. But instead of retreating, we take one step, just one step, and then another. And before we know it, those small, consistent steps lead us to places we once thought were unreachable. It is not about giant leaps, but about unwavering movement. And every step forward, no matter how small, is an act of defiance against fear, doubt, and limitation. This is exactly how we feel when we see glimpses of what's possible, when dreams that once felt distant begin to unfold before our eyes. The joy is overwhelming, the gratitude indescribable, the relief beyond words. Because it confirms that all the sleepless nights, all the quiet tears, all the uncelebrated sacrifices were not in vain. It confirms that faith works, that persistence pays off, and that even the darkest seasons eventually give birth to light. This is exactly how we feel when people underestimate us, when they look at our beginnings and dismiss our potential. We feel the sting of being overlooked, but instead of shrinking, we allow it to fuel us. Because deep down, we know that greatness doesn't need permission to exist. It doesn't need validation to shine. It simply requires commitment, consistency, and the courage to keep showing up. And in time, those who doubted us will be forced to witness the very brilliance they tried to ignore. This is exactly how we feel when fear whispers that we are not ready, not equipped, not capable. But something inside of us rises and says, I am more than enough. I am built for this. I am prepared for this moment. It is that inner voice that keeps us moving when everything outside tries to stop us. That unshakable belief that we are stronger than we appear, wiser than we realize, and more powerful than we've ever allowed ourselves to believe. This is exactly how we feel when we stand at the edge of new beginnings, unsure of what lies ahead, but determined to leap anyway. Because even though uncertainty scares us, we know that staying the same scares us more. Growth requires risk, transformation requires discomfort, and the life we dream of requires the boldness to step into the unknown, trusting that even if we stumble, we will rise again. This is exactly how we feel when we look around and realize that we are not alone, that our struggles connect us, that our pain binds us, that our victories inspire others. We feel the power of shared humanity, the unbreakable truth that we are stronger together than we will ever be apart. And in that realization, we discover a deeper sense of purpose, not just to rise for ourselves, but to rise for those who will follow. This is exactly how we feel when we embrace our uniqueness, when we stop comparing our journeys to others, when we stop measuring our worth by someone else's timeline. We feel free, liberated, powerful, because we finally understand that our story is not supposed to look like anyone else's, that our path is designed specifically for us, that our timing is perfect, even when it feels delayed. This is exactly how we feel when we acknowledge that our challenges were never meant to break us, but to reveal the power within us, that our struggles have carved strength into our souls, wisdom into our minds, and resilience into our spirits. And though the journey has been long and hard, it has made us unshakable. This is exactly how we feel when we step fully into our purpose, unafraid, unapologetic, unstoppable. When we realize that we were never created to simply survive, we were created to thrive, to impact, to inspire, to transform. And with every step we take, with every obstacle we overcome, with every victory we claim, we become living proof that nothing, absolutely nothing, can stand in the way of a heart that refuses to give up. This is exactly how we feel, and in that feeling lies the fire that keeps us moving forward no matter what. This is exactly how we feel when the weight of responsibility presses so heavily on our shoulders that it feels like we might collapse, yet we still carry it because deep down, we know we were built to handle more than we think. We feel the exhaustion of being strong for too long, of smiling when the tears are closer than words can express, of keeping it together when everything inside us feels like it's falling apart. But even in those moments, there is something unexplainable that rises within us, something that refuses to let us quit, something that whispers that tomorrow can still be better than today, and that the strength we need is already inside of us waiting to be called forth. This is exactly how we feel when people only see the surface of who we are, judging us by the chapter they walked in on while having no idea about the battles we fought just to make it here. We feel the ache of being misread, mislabeled, misunderstood. Yet instead of letting it break us, we allow it to teach us. We learn that we cannot live for the approval of others because people's perceptions are often shaped by their own limitations. We choose to keep walking in truth, knowing that in time, the reality of our strength, our vision, and our resilience will speak louder than any false assumption ever could. This is exactly how we feel when our minds are flooded with doubts, when the voices of fear echo louder than the whispers of faith. It's the moment where questions consume us. What if I fail? What if I'm not ready? What if I'm not good enough? But then we remember that core. Age doesn't mean we have no fear. Courage means that even with the fear, we move forward. It means that even with the uncertainty, we step anyway, because fear may roar, but it is our faith that carries the final word. And once we move, once we act, once we rise, fear loses its power to control us. This is exactly how we feel when we're stretched to the limit, when life asks for more than we think we can give, when the deadlines are too close, the expectations too high, and the resources too few. We feel like we're drowning in demands we cannot meet. But it is in those very moments that something extraordinary happens. We discover capacities we didn't know we had. We tap into levels of strength we never thought possible. And what once felt unbearable becomes a testimony of what we are truly capable of when we refuse to give up. This is exactly how we feel when the people we love don't always love us back in the way we hoped, when loyalty is not reciprocated, when kindness is taken for granted, when our hearts are met with indifference. The pain cuts deep, but it also teaches us one of the greatest lessons of all, that our worth is not tied to anyone's ability to recognize it. That whether or not others see our value, it does not diminish who we are. We rise from the ashes of disappointment with a deeper sense of self, a clearer understanding of boundaries, and a stronger ability to protect the treasure that is within us. This is exactly how we feel when life throws unexpected challenges our way, when we're blindsided by storms we never saw coming, when everything changes in a moment. We feel shocked, unprepared, overwhelmed. But in those moments of chaos, we are reminded that we are not as fragile as we thought. That within us lies an adaptability that allows us to bend without breaking, to adjust without surrendering, to navigate detours without abandoning the nest. A nation, the storm may shift our path, but it will never erase our purpose. This is exactly how we feel when fatigue tries to silence our drive. When the journey feels too long, when the waiting feels endless, we feel tempted to stop, to settle, to accept less than we know we deserve. But then something inside of us reignites, reminding us that everything we've endured has been leading us to this moment. That the struggle is proof of the significance of what we're pursuing. That we have already come too far to give up now. And so we take one more step and then another, and we discover that persistence itself is a form of power. This is exactly how we feel when we finally experience the breakthrough we've been fighting for, when the opportunity we prayed for opens up, when the vision begins to manifest. It feels like the weight of years of struggle lifts in an instant. We feel the joy of vindication, the satisfaction of endurance, the triumph of victory. And in that moment, we realize that every hardship was worth it, every sacrifice meaningful, every setback necessary, because they shaped us into someone strong enough to carry the blessing we once thought was out of reach. This is exactly how we feel when we recognize that our journeys are not just about us. When we see that our stories of resilience light the way for others who are still walking through the darkness we once faced. We feel the power of knowing that our survival is someone else's inspiration, that our courage is someone else's motivation, that our victories are someone else's hope. And it reminds us that our lives are not lived in isolation, but woven together with countless others who need the light we carry. This is exactly how we feel when we choose to forgive. Not because it was easy, not because it was deserved, but because we refuse to carry the weight of bitterness any longer. Forgiveness feels like freedom, like chains falling off, like a new chapter beginning. It is not weakness, it is strength. It is the decision to rise above the pain, to reclaim our peace, to take back control of our hearts. And though the scars may remain, forgiveness transforms them from reminders of pain into reminders of power. This is exactly how we feel when we refuse to settle for mediocrity, when we push beyond the boundaries of comfort, when we dare to live in the fullness of our potential. It feels risky, it feels uncertain, but it also feels alive. Because deep down, we know that life was never meant to be played safe. It was meant to be lived boldly, courageously, unapologetically. And every time we choose growth over comfort, we prove to ourselves that fear will never have the final say in our lives. This is exactly how we feel when we embrace our identity fully, without apology, without shame, without hesitation. When we stop dimming our light to make others feel comfortable. When we stop shrinking to fit into spaces too small for us. When we stop silencing our voices out of fear of judgment. We feel free, unstoppable, powerful. Because we finally understand that authenticity is our greatest weapon, and that no imitation could ever compare to the original brilliance of who we are. This is exactly how we feel when we look back at the storms we've survived and realize that what was meant to break us actually built us, that what was designed to bury us became the soil in which we grew. That every time we thought it was over, life was actually preparing us for something greater. And with that realization, we step into the future not with fear, but with unshakable faith. This is exactly how we feel when we realize that our pain has not been wasted, that our waiting has not been pointless, that our tears have not been in vain, that every single moment, even the hardest ones, have been shaping us into the version of ourselves that is ready for those. A destiny ahead. And with that knowledge, we rise, not because it's easy, not because we're unafraid, but because we finally understand that we were created for more than just survival. This is exactly how we feel, and it is this feeling that drives us to keep moving, to keep fighting, to keep believing, no matter how heavy the burden, no matter how long the road, no matter how fierce the storm. This is exactly how we feel when the weight of the past tries to creep back into the present, when memories of failures, mistakes, and regrets resurface to remind us of the times we stumbled. We feel that heaviness, that tug backward, as though we are being pulled into the shadows of what once was. But in those moments, something stronger rises up inside of us, a refusal to be defined by what broke us. We remind ourselves that every mistake was a lesson, every failure a stepping stone, every setback a redirection. We carry the wisdom of the past without allowing it to chain us, and in doing so, we prove to ourselves that we are not who we were. We are becoming who we were always meant to be. This is exactly how we feel when the noise of the world becomes deafening, when opinions bombard us from every direction, when everyone has something to say about who we should be, where we should go, how we should live. We feel overwhelmed, almost suffocated by the pressure to meet expectations that were never ours to carry. Yet in that chaos, we discover the power of silence, the clarity of stillness, the strength of listening to the voice within. Because deep down, that inner voice knows the truth of our calling, and it is far more powerful than the chorus of outside noise. This is exactly how we feel when we push past obstacles that once seemed immovable, when we break through ceilings we once thought were too high, when we do the very thing we were told we could never do. The victory tastes sweeter, because it is not just about proving others wrong, it is about proving ourselves right. It is about showing up for the version of us that once doubted, once hesitated, once feared. And with every barrier we break, we expand not only our own possibilities, but also the possibilities for those who will follow behind us. This is exactly how we feel when our dreams scare us, when the vision is so big that it feels impossible, when the mountain before us seems too steep to climb. Fear mixes with excitement, doubt collides with hope, uncertainty battles with determination. And yet, in the middle of that whirlwind, there is an undeniable truth. If it scares us, it means it matters. If it feels too big, it means it is worth pursuing. If it seems impossible, it means it was designed to stretch us into a higher version of ourselves. We may not know every step, but we know that every step forward is a declaration that we believe in what's inside of us. This is exactly how we feel when we carry burdens no one else sees, when we fight battles that are invisible to the world, when we walk with scars that others mistake for smiles. It can be lonely. It can be exhausting. It can feel like too much. But we keep going, not because it's easy, but because we know the purpose planted in us is greater than the pain pressing against us. The world may never know the full weight of what we've endured, but the strength that has been built within us will forever speak louder than words. This is exactly how we feel when we choose to rise each day, even when the night before left us broken, when we choose to smile, even when our hearts are heavy, when we choose to try again, love again, believe again, even after life has given us every reason to shut down. That choice is power. That choice is victory. That choice is proof that we are stronger than the storms that come against us. This is exactly how we feel when we stand at the edge of change, when life demands we let go of what is familiar in order to step into what is greater. We feel the pull of comfort, the temptation to stay where it's safe, but we also feel the fire of destiny urging us forward. We know that growth never happens in the familiar. It happens in the unknown. And so, even trembling, we take the step, because we understand that the life we dream of will only ever be found on the other side of fear. This is exactly how we feel when we find ourselves misunderstood, when others don't grasp our vision, when our passion seems foolish to those who lack the same fire. The isolation can sting, but it also fuels us. Because being misunderstood is often the sign that we are dreaming at a level beyond the ordinary. Greatness rarely fits into the boxes others try to place around it, and so we keep walking. We keep building, we keep believing, knowing that time will reveal what words cannot. This is exactly how we feel when we give love even after being hurt, when we extend kindness in a world that often lacks it, when we show compassion in the face of cruelty. It may feel vulnerable, even risky, but it also feels liberating. Because choosing love in a world of bitterness is an act of rebellion. Choosing kindness when cruelty is easier is a declaration of strength. And every time we choose love, we rise above the very forces that tried to break us. This is exactly how we feel when we finally discover that our worth is not tied to what we do, what we achieve, or what others think of us. It is inherent, unshakable, and undeniable. We feel a freedom that no failure can take away and no success can add to. Because we are not defined by titles, positions, or accomplishments, we are defined by the power, resilience, and uniqueness of who we are. This is exactly how we feel when we turn pain into purpose, when we transform our struggles into strength, when we use our stories not as chains, but as keys to unlock doors for others. There is tie in realizing that the very things that once hurt us the most can become the tools that heal someone else. There is power in knowing that our journey, as messy as it may be, carries meaning beyond ourselves. And there is strength in embracing that nothing we've endured will ever be wasted. This is exactly how we feel when we recognize that even in our brokenness, we are whole, that even in our struggles, we are strong, that even in our doubts, we are still moving forward. Life may not always look the way we planned, but every twist, every turn, every detour is shaping us into the masterpiece we were always meant to become. This is exactly how we feel when we choose to trust the process, even when we don't understand it. When we choose to believe that the delays are not denials, that the waiting is not wasted, that the journey is preparing us for something far greater than we can see, it is not easy, but it is necessary, because trust is what carries us when sight fails. Trust is what keeps us steady when the road feels uncertain. Trust is what reminds us that what's ahead is worth every step we're taking now. This is exactly how we feel when we step into spaces where we once felt unworthy, when we walk confidently into opportunities that once intimidated us, when we claim the very things we once thought were out of reach. The shift is undeniable. It is the realization that we belong, that we have always belonged, that the doors we walk through now are not by accident, but by design. And we step with boldness, knowing that nothing and no one can take away what was always meant for us. This is exactly how we feel when we look in the mirror and finally see not flaws, not failures, not fears, but strength, beauty, and purpose. When we embrace the reflection staring back at us and recognize the journey it has survived, the battles it has endured, the victories it has achieved. That reflection is not just an image. It is evidence of resilience, proof of growth, and a reminder that we are living testaments of what it means to rise again and again. This is exactly how we feel when we realize that no matter what life throws at us, no matter how many times we fall, no matter how heavy the storms, there is something within us that cannot be destroyed. That something is our spirit, our fire, our unshakable will. And as long as that remains, there is nothing that can stop us from rising, from growing, from becoming all we were destined to be.